Hi everyone, Cynthia here from So Casually Chic. I would like to welcome you to day 2 of the Greenstyle Bomdia Sew Along. I forgot why I was here for a second. So I would like to first remind you, if you haven't yet, grab your Bomdia pattern for 25% off and use the special link that you can find on my blog in order to get that 25% off. All you have to do is click on the link, add the pattern to your cart and click checkout, and then you will see a 25% discount that you can't get anywhere else right now. I'd also like to remind you to use your Minerva.com coupon, 10% off all fabrics through January 30th using Bomdia10 at checkout. Minerva.com has graciously sponsored our sew along by giving us this great coupon code and also some fabric prices at the end. So thank you, Minerva.com. Now, let's get started on day 2. If you completed day 1, you will have already cut out all the fabric for your garment. So today, we're gonna get started by hemming the dress first. What? Who hems a dress first? Well, we do on the Bomdia. And let me tell you, it is so awesome to finish a dress and not have to hem it at the end because you did it at the beginning. It's a great feeling, but we have to do it because of the casing. So after we hem the dress, we will stitch up the side seams and we will create this lovely casing for our drawstrings that make Bomdia so special. So that is it. That's all we do today. Enjoy.
All right, let's get started. It may seem odd to start with hemming, but it is necessary because of the casing. My tools of choice are disappearing ink marker, acrylic ruler, spray starch, and my iron. I'll start by marking 2 inches up from the bottom edge of the fabric, and that 2 inches will help me create a 1-inch hem. Fold the fabric up to the line and iron in place. We've ironed a 1-inch hem on the front bodice and we'll repeat for the back bodice. Hem the bottom using a zigzag stitch as I'm using here. It's stitch number 8 on my machine. You can also use a cover stitch or a twin needle. I actually have a cover stitch machine, but this fabric is so busy that a zigzag stitch won't even show up. So I just decided to use my sewing machine, which was out already. Pin the front and back bodices together along the side seam by laying one of the pieces with the right side facing up on your table, and then lay the other piece on top of it with the right side facing down. Notice the curvy bit where the FBA is? Just pin there carefully so you can get a nice even stitch along that curvy edge. I like pinning the top first and then the bottom and then going back and forth in between. we're going to stitch up those side seams. Now we're going to use a straight stitch, which may surprise you on knits, but this seam isn't going to be stretched vertically, so a straight stitch will be fine. It will be scrunched up with those drawstrings. We are going to stitch a very wide 3/4 inch seam allowance, so make sure you follow your guide on your machine to get that correct allowance. And as always, grab those thread tails and gently pull them toward the back as you begin your stitch. This will prevent the needle from pressing the fabric down into the needle plate. Now while I'm stitching up this side seam, let me talk to you a little bit about fit. At this step in the process, you still have an opportunity to take your dress in if you'd like it to fit a little bit tighter. And I spent some time in the introduction video talking about tight fit versus loose fit and thin fabric versus thick fabric and how that will affect the ruching on your dress. So go back and watch that conversation if you're interested in hearing more about that. But this is your opportunity to make the dress fit tighter if you want. I recommend making these stitches with a basting stitch and trying the dress on inside out. At that time, you can take the dress in more if you want a tighter fit. You can't do it after you've created the drawstring casing though. Then once you're satisfied with your fit, go over your stitches with a permanent 2.5mm straight stitch. This is the inside of the seam we just created. See how it's all poofy? We want to get that nice and flat so we can stitch here right along the edge and create the casing. I like to use a bit of starch because this fabric takes a little bit of work to get ironed out, but starch isn't essential. Iron both side seams just like this, and then we'll take it over to the machine and stitch right along these outer edges of the seam allowance in order to create the casing. It's a little tricky to stitch along the curvy top portion of the side seam, so I found it helpful to add a few pins just in this area. It's only about the top 4 inches of the side seam. So we are again going to use a straight stitch with a default stitch length of 2.5mm, and as you can see, I'm pulling those thread tails back as I get started. As you're stitching, use your fingers on both hands to keep all of the fabric nice and flat, and that'll help avoid any bubbles or shifting of fabric as you're stitching. And also make sure to be checking underneath that the other side of the dress isn't getting caught under the needle. So it's a lot of stopping to shift and adjust and make sure everything's nice and flat. Now we'll pull the dress out and flip it around to stitch the other channel on the same side seam. So we're working on the same side of the dress again. We're just doing the second channel along that same side seam. Now we have completed the 2 channels on one side of the dress, so you'll repeat for the other side, and tomorrow we'll make the drawstring for it. So how did day 2 go? Let me know in the comments. I try to answer all questions promptly, and be sure to head on over to the Greenstyle group on Facebook to check in on today's sew along post. Just search #BomdiaSAL to find all my posts. I can't wait to hear from you.